Is Wicked for Good any good? Is it as good as the first one? Does it live up to the hype? Let's find out! Hi everyone, I'm Pedro Luferson and welcome to my YouTube channel where I talk about movies, TV, games and books. And yes, today we're talking about Wicked for Good, with spoilers of the full story, so if you care about them, watch the movie, then come back and watch this video. To be clear, I liked it. I do like the movie and I believe that if you like the first one, you'll probably like this one too. But liking something doesn't mean ignoring its flaws, so let's talk about the bad stuff before talking about the good stuff. The movie is messy. Any resemblance of rhythm stayed in the first movie. No one cared to bring it here. The pacing of the story feels like it's all over the place. And by that I mean that it feels like it doesn't do a good job at balancing the emotional weight of different scenes together with the fast succession of events. The movie has a lot of things going on and it's trying to show it all to us. We quickly go from one situation to another, but it sometimes feels like some scenes are honestly overstaying their welcome. Like they have their function in the story but they feel out of tone with the scenes before and after. They feel like they should be longer to create a greater sense of connection, but at the same time I was like, can we just move on to the next scene? Unfortunately, I felt that mostly during some songs. Those being Couldn't Be Happier, but especially No Place Like Home, Wonderful, and Girl in a Bubble. Wonderful feels like at the beginning we already know the ending. Another attempt to manipulate Elphaba that works for like 10 seconds. Then she has a real Carrie moment, flies away and takes her man with her. That girl wastes no time. This song mostly feels like it's just filling a gap, and its happy and silly tone feels displaced in this much darker story.
But I'll say something. Adding Glinda to the song makes so much sense. She's already immersed in this world and would want nothing more than being close to Elphaba again. She's already under the wizard's spell, so in a narrative point of view, using her to make the manipulation more intense and effective was a wonderful idea. But there is something that bothered me a little. I didn't quite like when they used too much of the songs from part 1 in part 2. Specifically when the guards and Glinda do the la la from Popular and when she sings a piece of Defying Gravity doing Wonderful. I get that it made sense in the scenario of Glinda trying to convince Elphaba to join the wizard, but for me it felt more like they were just using one of the best songs to elevate one of the least favorites. Now let's talk about the two new songs, No Place Like Home and Girl in a Bubble. The actual moment of Elphaba talking to the animals including Dusa Bear and meeting the Cowardly Lion is a great addition that shows the perspective of the other ending of the wizard's rule. Plus we have that moment of the flying monkeys understanding more of what happened to them, making their change of side more believable. But again, the song feels like it's just there to fill a gap of let's put a song here. I feel like it's too long and repetitive. I mean, it makes sense that Elphaba wants to fight for the animals and the place she feels it's her home, and that the animals should not abandon us, which is a bit ironic since she's the one who leaves at the end. Cynthia's musical performance is amazing, this is not ever a question, but the song itself is just there. The same scene without the song, just a conversation with the animals instead, would have been more effective in my opinion. Now, Girl in a Bubble is in an awkward position to me, literally. Its place in the movie considering the surrounding moments feels weird. We just came from a very energetic and heavy song, now we are in this very calm, slow and delicate one. And specifically considering that we are close to the end, the previously established tension happened too recently to allow me to breathe and take the nuances of this dreamy and smooth song. Thematically speaking, this song has a purpose and makes sense that it exists, but I don't think that song fits in the moment it's in if we talk about the larger context. And by the way, that flashback of Glinda's childhood, I get that it was supposed to mirror Elphaba's in the first movie, but this one didn't do anything. In my opinion, it's completely skippable. It has a message that is reinforced in the Girl in the Bubble, but it would have worked just fine without it because Couldn't Be Happier already established Glinda's lack of fulfillment with her life and position. Elphaba's childhood flashback was quick, functional, and efficient to show us just enough of her backstory for us to understand how and what she grew up with. But Glinda's kind of just tell us what we already knew. But regardless of the role every song has in the movie, I just can't stop listening to the soundtrack. I actually quite enjoy Girl in a Bubble, even though I think it doesn't fit perfectly in the movie, the song itself and Ariana Grande's performance are very beautiful. And speaking of Glinda, I have a bit of a theory about Glinda's two main dresses and why she starts the movie with one and finishes with another. We start with a lavender dress with lots of blue, purple and just a hint of pink. Then at the end we go for a full pink dress, the one we saw at the beginning of part 1. Why did it change, you might ask? Well, the easy answer is that changing the clothes of a character is often a way to show their evolution in a narrative.
And of course, both dresses took inspiration from the pink dress from The Wizard of Oz and the blue dress from the play. But I think the reason might be a bit deeper than that. For that, let's think about the most symbolic colors of the movie, pink and green. In the movie, we actually have two kinds of green. The cold emerald green that reflects the wizard, the Emerald City, and therefore the villain side of the story. And we have Elphaba's warm green, which is more yellowish and not as saturated. Elphaba's green is also constantly surrounded by yellow lights with the sunlight, the torches, and the light of the greenery itself. It's easy to mistake one green by the other, but if you look at them side by side, you can see the difference. And obviously, we have Glinda's pink. My theory is that as Glinda is for the most part of the movie, on the wizard's side, even if not fully agreeing with him, her pink moves toward his green and becomes more blue. If you look at a color wheel, that's the move she's making. It is still a very Glinda dress, but on the outside it is closer to the emerald green. We even see the contrast of her old clothes in her pink closet during Girl in a Bubble in comparison with the rest of her penthouse. In part 1, her room was pink all over the place, but in Wicked for Good, her true self is kept away. Then, when we reach the end of the movie, she goes back to her true self, embracing the light and vibrant pink that, funny enough, goes really well with yellows like the sunlight and the glow of the greenery, just like Elphaba's green. But I think the best parts of the movie are Shocker when the main trio is interacting. That is Elfie, Glinda and Fiero, especially during the second half towards the end of the movie. Fiero and Elphaba for me are the cutest couple. Elphaba's deepest relationship is with Glinda of course, and it has the heaviest emotional weight, but the connection between Elphaba and Fiero is just so natural and genuine. From the first movie, even if they had a bumpy start, they get each other so quickly and almost don't hold back their feelings. And in the second movie, it just solidified. I mentioned in my previous video talking about Wicked that the Scarecrow is, in my opinion, the best character from The Wizard of Oz. He is wholehearted and very loyal, and as we found out, never needed to be gifted a brain to be smart. And I think Fiero carries on with the same principles. When we first see him, he is an arrogant and shallow person who constantly shows his disrespect for, well, thinking. But it doesn't take long for Elphaba to realize that it's all a facade. And from the moment they have a real connection, Fiero is changed forever, running away with Elphaba and leaving everything behind the first opportunity he has. He doesn't care about his status or the luxury life he now has, because for him, nothing's more important than being with Elphaba. As I see it, their relationship comes from this very similar place where the both of them see each other for who they truly are quite quickly. Elphaba sees beyond his facade and Fiero sees how honest, authentic and brave she is beyond the green commotion she is and the armor she puts on. And despite his surface level brainlessness, he is very decisive and convicted of what really matters to him. So much so that he's 100% sure that he has full faith and love for Elphaba and that she feels just the same for him. Just like that. He doesn't even have a single drop of bitterness when turned into the Scarecrow. He is nothing but thankful to see her and happy that they can be together again. He has so much faith on their connection that he doesn't even care that he is not quote-unquote beautiful anymore. But of course, the same way he thought she was beautiful despite Elphaba herself not believing someone could think that, she thinks he's still beautiful and her love for him hasn't changed a bit. And you know what else would be beautiful? If you subscribed. It would make me very happy and you won't miss out on the new videos I'll be posting. Now going back to Elphaba's emotions, we are able to see how Elphaba is when she's intimately connected with someone because, a bit like Fiero, she has a facade to interact with those who she doesn't feel close to. Like when she meets someone for the first time, she's often defensive, blunt and sarcastic. But when she lets people in, she's soft-spoken, more quiet and a bit melancholic and almost timid. We can see in her eyes how she's actually longing deeply for those connections and how she's quietly taking all those incredibly strong emotions. During As Long As You're Mine, we see from the very first line she sings her fragility and vulnerability being shown, and how her expression is full of longing and expectations. And since we're talking about it, As Long As You're Mine is something else. It is so, let's say, engaging that often when I'm listening to the soundtracks, I skip that one because it's a bit too powerful, you know what I mean? But anyways, we see this quieter side of Elphaba not just with Fiero, but with Nessa, Madame Morble, the wizard, and more than with anyone else, Glinda. Many of the most powerful moments between the two of them is when we see this timid, vulnerable, and quiet Elphaba letting Glinda in and allowing her to see her true emotions. After all, that story is about the two of them. Which brings us to the end. And I think that as much as the movie is messy in the first 3 quarters, the end itself is very good. They came back to what actually made The Wicked so emotional, the relationship between Elphaba and Glinda. It took a bit too long to see them together in a true intimate scene, but that being said, the hope for a good moment is, to no one's surprise, nothing but lovely. Followed by they saying I love you to each other and the beautiful door scene. The surrounding context of the witch hunters and the Dorothy crew is simply functional to help deliver the most emotionally charged moment of both movies. Cynthia's and Ariana's performances are just so true when they say I love you as goodbye, that even though we know that they are going to be okay, the pain of saying goodbye because of something much bigger than you is so crushing. Then we have the finale with the two of them singing from far away as they look at the horizon, when Glinda was so changed, so deeply changed that the Grimmer opens to her in response to the magic that just sparkled in her heart. I was a bit iffy with Glinda getting magical powers out of nowhere, but we can read it as in the universe of Oz, spontaneous magic can spark through emotional or spiritual realizations. Much like most times, Elphaba uses her powers in very emotionally heavy situations like to protect her sister or to celebrate the possibility of meeting the wizard. But ultimately it happens to show how much Glinda has changed. And I'm gonna say, I don't think Glinda thinks Elphaba is really dead, but I believe that she knows that whatever happened to her, that was the last time they would ever see each other. She knew that the whole water can melt her was a bunch of shears, so at least I think that little part of her knows that she's alive. As I see it, the pain she feels is more because she knows that Elfie will never have a place in Oz. She'll never have peace and she'll never be safe there. Just like when Elphaba asks her to look at her not with her eyes, but with theirs, the pain she feels is that she'll never be able to see her ever again in her life, especially considering that they have loved and changed each other forever. Now talking about how I felt after watching the movie, on the internet there are so many videos of people before and after watching Wicked for Good, and almost every time the after is people crying their eyes out. That was not my case. For all the reasons I mentioned, my experience with the movie was a bit shaky even though I really liked the ending. The first movie is the best of the two, that is for sure. But if you are familiar with the play in any capacity, you probably are aware that the first act is known for being the best one. And that's a very common opinion. It has the best rhythm, the best songs, and the most iconic scenes. And I think that's why I wasn't really surprised to find out the second movie is a bit underwhelming. But the funniest thing is, even though the second movie wasn't as good as the first one and I believe they could have done better, I wasn't mad about it. You see, 2 videos ago I talked a lot about my journey with Wicked, which has been great and a bit bumpy, to be honest. It started with the first movie and ended with the second movie, but a lot of things happened in between. Thanks to it all, I became obsessed with a lot of songs, was able to get to know the work of countless amazing artists, lived amazing experiences, and was able to immerse myself in this world with these stories that changed so many lives throughout so many years. I was able to feel the love of people who were fans since 20 years ago or just a few months ago. The many versions of the story have brought so many people together in so many different ways, shapes and forms, and it is such a unique story about friendship, love and empowerment. One that more than ever has a unique place in recent pop culture that I risk to say will live in people's hearts forever. And this movie is part of this journey, the final part of this chapter in my life that has intensely existed in my head and heart rent-free for the past year. It gave me so much and it taught me so much that the only thing I can feel right now is gratitude. Gratitude for the play, the book, the characters, the songs, the cast, the people, and of course, both movies. They have all been part of this journey, even though some were better or more pleasant than others. I'm truly thankful for every one of them. For me, they all exist together to create this amazing and enriching experience that I have had for the past year. And hours after watching the second movie, to be honest, I almost cried thinking of the journey as a whole. It's the kind of experience that stays with you and only you know how special it all was. To me, both Wicked movies feel like an extended version of the play. They are literally extended since they are longer, obviously. But I say in the sense that the movie has all the small or not so small ideas that the play had but couldn't show because of time or the limitations of theater itself. Like the extended versions of Lord of the Rings or Avatar. And like many movies, extended versions, they may be a bit too long, have a bit too much here and there, and sometimes we see that removing one thing or another for the sake of a better rhythm or a smoother narrative might have been the best choice at the end. But there are also things, new things that we cannot possibly see this story without anymore. Moments that by taking longer, talking more, singing more and feeling more are actually a gift. Moments like Little Elfie, Weaselmania, the bear hug and the door split scene. And there are still a bunch of deleted scenes that I honestly wish were in the final cut of both movies. With the book, the play, and the movies, this story has now many versions and ways to interpret, each one of them with their strengths and weaknesses, all together creating something bigger than the sum of its parts. And I mean, who can say if this story has changed for the better, but I do believe this journey has existed for the better, and because we know it, we have all been changed for good. And this is how the drawing turned out. As I expected, it was so much easier and quicker to make than Glinda's. The textures of her cape and the green sky behind her did most of the work. It was one of those moments like when you find the right brush and everything after that comes together all by itself. Also, the light contrast on her suit made such a difference when I put them. My jaw was on the floor and I was like, oh my god, that's it. It looks amazing. I really like when a drawing surprises you while you're making it. It often happens with the lighting layers. And in the case you guys haven't noticed, they are doing the hand thing just like in the movie posters. As I said, this was much faster to do, and I think I liked this better than Glinda's because it was less of a pain to make. But also because the contrast between the black and the bright green is nicer to look at than the overwhelmingly light pinks of Glinda's illustration. And that's it for today. Don't forget to like, comment, share this video and subscribe to see the new videos I'll be posting. I quite enjoyed the Draw With Me I last posted and I already have another one planned that is also Wicked related, so see you guys later. Bye!